Hello, my name is Anand Chingran. I'm going to walk you through how you can actually build your GraphQL APIs and run them with less code, faster, and cheaper with StepZen. As you think through and as you try to build out your GraphQL API, you need to be able to connect with all the backends, microservices with the right protocols. Of course, the GraphQL API needs to be performant, it needs to be secure, it needs to handle throughput as you're successful, it needs to handle errors gracefully, it needs to handle changes. No API is static, you're always adding new backends, swapping backends. And if you sit in a larger organization, you should be able to handle team structures and graph of graphs. The key question that you're going to answer is, are you going to acquire the skills and write code for all of the above, or will the GraphQL system handle it for you? Fundamentally, a GraphQL engine, whether you're using any of your favorite tools, be it Apollo, or be it your tool in Kotlin or Rust or Ruby or Golang, when given a query like this, which is on the left-hand side, which is really for a, let's say, an e-commerce query, where you got to, for a customer, get his or her orders and understand the delivery status, and also wanting to personalize that particular information, perhaps by determining the current temperature where the customer is at, requires your GraphQL engine to be able to walk that tree. And in fact, walking the tree really means being able to compute what it means to actually execute an edge in that particular tree that's shown on the right-hand side. The traditional approach, using all the tools that I talked about, is you program your resolvers. So if you focus your attention on the right-hand side and look at it in JavaScript, you may have a resolver that says to get from customer to weather. If you focus on the right-hand side, you've got to kind of convert customer city into lat long and then call weather. To get from customer to orders, you might want to issue an API call, which is just a wrapper on the database with you kind of manipulating and understanding all the database connection strings and everything else. And to go from delivery to status, you might be interested in determining if the delivery is by DHL, then call this API versus call that API. The fundamental thing that happens in this is that each edge is a program that is actually just executed by the GraphQL system. It is not understood by the GraphQL system. And therefore, the only thing that GraphQL system can do is to, in effect, call these resolvers as it is walking to the tree. And all the kinds of optimizations and all the other things that I talked about in my first slide have to be done by you by hand, using other code, other skills, and other library. StepZen takes a different approach. It takes a declare resolvers approach. You're actually not writing a program for each of those edge. You are in effect declaring what that particular edge actually does. So for example, you may declare that the customer is to be obtained by making a REST call, for example, to an Airtable, and the orders can be gotten from a database table, which is of type MySQL. And to go from customer to orders, you actually take some parameters from customer and issue a query against orders. So you are really declaring your way out of this particular set of edges. And now if you focus your attention on the left-hand side, what that really does is that each of those edge, what's really happening in that edge, is actually completely understood by StepZen. So the net of it is that you actually end up writing less complex, more correct code, because you're just simply assembling these pieces together. But also because StepZen actually understands all the stuff that's going on, it can actually reorder and reassemble and make the right sets of optimizations to happen. So all the things that you would have to do programming in the previous slide are done automatically for you in StepZen. The second thing that we actually do fundamentally is that almost all libraries that you would use as your kind of traditional way of constructing GraphQL leave that last step of actually deploying that particular thing to you. And therefore, you've got to kind of figure out how to package everything else and run it in the cloud, and you've got to be able to manage it and scale your GraphQL API. In StepZen, we take a very different approach, which is as you assemble your GraphQL API through this declaration of resolvers, it automatically runs in the StepZen subsystem, and as StepZen as a service API, and you're able to deploy, manage, and we are able to deploy, manage, and scale your API for you. So you think through this as you're kind of going on your GraphQL journey. I've kind of touched about a few of these things. If you focus on the third column, with StepZen, you write your GraphQL API, and almost everything else is done for you because we understand what the resolvers are, and we are able to actually make the right sets of decisions happen for you. If you actually go on the journey of building your own GraphQL API, then you've got to start to think through how do you parse the GraphQL tree, how do you actually optimize it, how do you combine the queries, how do you deploy it, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a choice that you've got to make, whether you go on the left, where the code that you use to create the API is all the code that you need because everything else is done for you, or whether you want to go with the column on the right, where the code you write to create the API is just the beginning. You write more code and need more skills to deploy, protect, scale, and optimize the API. So you can see the difference for yourself. We hope that you go and sign up on stepzen.com/signup. Thank you very much.